40 years ago, a deadly tornado made its mark in the history books as it worked across Portage, Trumbull, and Mercer counties. Now, as another milestone anniversary arrives for the strongest and deadliest tornado to be recorded in the Mahoning and Shawn valleys, we look back at pictures, videos, and survivor stories. Shawn Schuman runs the Storm Stalker blog and has detailed the outbreak from start to finish. Here to share more with us is Shawn Schuman. Shawn, thank you so much for taking some time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you wrote this blog excerpt just a couple of years ago, and it contains about every detail you could possibly imagine about the 85 tornado outbreak, not only from the F5 tornado that impacted us here locally, but other tornadoes that as well that impacted so many that day, and even a lot of details about the meteorological setup from that day. So tell us a little bit about your blog and why you decided to start it.
Yeah, so I started my blog originally over a decade ago, I think, just because a lot of these events, you know, as time goes by and memories fade and you lose a lot of the stories from these events. And especially an event like this, people don't necessarily realize that something like this can happen here. And I've been researching this event for quite a while, and every time you research it, there's not really that much out there, especially about some of the smaller tornadoes that get overshadowed by the F5, obviously. And this just gives me a chance to collect some of these stories and photos and everything so that they don't get lost.
Yeah, I mean, your blog post is pretty expansive. We'll tell people where they can read about it coming up here in just a couple of minutes. But when they go onto your blog, they're going to find an expansive blog post about the 85 tornado outbreak. Over 40 tornadoes that day between Northeast Ohio, Western PA, New York, and Ontario. Let's talk a little bit about the F5 tornado here locally. What were some of the interesting stories that you found that you included in your blog from the F5 tornado that moved through our neck of the woods here in Northeast Ohio and Western PA?
Sure. So I think probably one of the things that stuck out the most is the people that were put in just unbelievable circumstances, forced to make decisions, split-second decisions. Like one that always comes to mind is Dave Kostka. He was in Wheatland, Pennsylvania, and he tried to escape the tornado in his car and wasn't able to, and he had to make a split-second decision to get out of the car with his young niece and her friend, and he parked in a ditch and used his body to sacrifice himself to protect those two young kids. And his story is incredible, but it's not the only one. There are so many stories like that, of people that their entire fates depend on split-second decisions that they make. It's really fascinating and tragic.
Absolutely. And how important is it, Dave, or Shawn, rather, to recap these major severe weather events, not only so we can learn what happened, but maybe what we can learn what happened then from a meteorological perspective and maybe hope to improve in the future?
Yeah, I think we get caught up in we don't necessarily realize that events like this can happen here because they're so rare. We had another event not too dissimilar to this in May 31st, 1998. Not quite as severe, but the same sort of event. And the more we can learn about these events, the more we can realize that they do happen here, and we can start to prepare because I'm sure most people are like I used to be. You get a tornado warning, you just kind of shrug it off. You know, we get those sometimes and nothing ever happens. But
Shawn, it's certainly important, the blog that you put together. And where can people go read your blog? They're going to find so many interesting tidbits, pictures, and survivor stories on your blog. Where can people go to read all about it?
Sure. So it's stormstalker.wordpress.com.
And Shawn, thank you so much for taking the time here on 21 News at 5. I encourage everyone to go. The link is right there. Go to the blog right now. Check it out. It's fascinating what you'll learn, not only from the meteorological aspect of it, but just the survivor stories and the damage. Shawn, thank you for putting this together, and thank you for taking the time to join us here on 21 News.
Well, thank you so much for having me.